All right. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Uh,
welcome to Fate's Wide Wheel.
welcome, Fate's Wide Wheel. We are a Quantum Leap podcast with Sam and Dennis. I'm not sure if we're dropping the Sam or Dennis or whatever we're doing with that right now. But anyway, some housekeeping as we get started off. Find us online. You can find us at our new domain, fateswidewheel.com. Look us up on social, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Fate's Wide Wheel. Find us on whatever your favorite podcatcher is. I always feel awkward saying that because you probably, if you're finding us, you probably got a favorite podcatcher. Maybe through our website. I don't know. But if you are, especially through Apple Podcasts, if you have listened to us or just listening to us, if you would be so kind, go hit the follow button. I think it's follow is what they're doing now.
I believe that is correct.
Give us a follow, give us a review if you are so inclined. That certainly helps. It helps people find us, or wherever you listen to us. Please leave us a review, leave us some thoughts, leave us your feedback. Speaking of, in the near future, we're going to be having more ways that you can like send us your feedback and stuff online. We'll be talking about like feedback and everything. We're going to do that. But this week, what are we here to talk about, Sam?
We have a few things to talk about this week, and I'm really excited about it. We're going to uncover just a couple of little tidbits that we know about the upcoming pilot, which will begin shooting in less than a month, which is exciting. We haven't heard any casting news yet, and I mean everyone, no one has heard. We haven't heard anything from our beloved observer, and there's been nothing published, but I imagine that'll be coming soon, with production set to begin on March 9th in Vancouver. And like I said, we're gonna talk about a couple of things having to do with the pilot that we are aware of that we want to share with you, and we also wanted to talk a bit about what's next for the podcast in general, because we're not going to just sit here talking about the pilot. We'll run out of things to talk about, obviously, far before October, if that is indeed when it airs, which seems to be the plan. But I think first up, the Helen Shaver news that has been all over the websites. Deadline, I believe, broke the exclusive news, which isn't true. Our friend Matt Dale was the one that actually broke that news, discovered it through the Directors Guild of Canada website, and production info based off of what's going to be shooting up there over the next couple of months. Was able to uncover that news, published it on his site, quantumleapinfo.net. Also shared it via Facebook, and we picked up on that and shared it on all of our social media channels as well. It's also been added to that, however, that she has been made executive producer as well, as directing the pilot, which is interesting. What's your take on that, Dennis?
You know what? I learned that literally right before we hit record, because you told me that. Because we were talking about before we hit record. Matt broke that Helen Shaver was going to be it. I got the news from Matt. I didn't realize that he had broken that and had gotten that before the other ones. Like, I thought that there had been like the press releases and everything. And right. I totally missed that Matt had missed that Matt had broken that story. So when my Google alert blew up with like Helen Shaver, I was like, yeah, we knew that a week ago. What the
right?
Why is everybody going crazy over this? So yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I had more intelligent to say about it, but I think that's awesome.
No, I completely understand. I think it's interesting. There's not a lot to say about it, I suppose, but it is. I think one of the immediate thoughts I had is that it indicated to me that this is somebody who is probably going to take even more ownership over that role of direction in the pilot, and that to me is important. I think that the investment that she will have in the show, even beyond just her directing duties, it could be meaningful and impactful in ways that we don't know yet. But a lot of times in television, and this is not at all criticism, this is just kind of the way the business works, directors, they're earning a paycheck, and it's not necessarily about like, I love this show and I want, they're about directing the best episode that they can, and not necessarily concerned all the time. There are obviously exceptions, but they're not necessarily concerned about the overall arc or the overall, thematic elements or production design or styles or whatever. They're there to kind of direct their episode and move on to the next thing. And by, her having that executive producer title, again, I think it could just raise that level of investment for her. And I'm excited. I think that she is a really interesting choice just because of her background, and obviously having worked both on both sides of the camera is always something to me that I think is a great asset, and it'll be really interesting to see the types of actors that are working on the show, the performances that we see in the pilot, especially knowing what we know thus far about the characters. I just think that there's some really great opportunities for some wonderful acting moments besides all the spectacle that we're also going to get in the pilot.
For sure. And knowing that she's an actor too, I would not be surprised if she pops up in an episode at some point.
I wouldn't hate it. I'm telling you.
At least a mirror image, kind of a la Don and your favorite episode, A Portrait for Troyan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Also this week, Matt broke, I think Matt did break this from the Canada website, is that Warren Hanna has been named the assistant director, which I knew nothing about till I just IMDb'd him. His most known credit on IMDb, at least, is he was the second unit director for The Butterfly Effect.
Yeah. It's interesting because ADs, the job can be so varied.
Are you doing something? Are you going to get the crew coffee?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is this
at least in the world of theater, that's what it seems like it is.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth? But I mean, he could be shooting like some second unit stuff. He could be shooting, footage that has to do with the leap or with the project or stuff that doesn't necessarily involve the principals. He could be shooting those sorts of things, which means that he would also have a hand in crafting the overall look of the pilot. Or it could just be that he's there to kind of, converse with the director and hang out at craft services. Who knows?
Sure.
So, and hey, that is no disrespect whatsoever. It is a job. And I think that somebody who obviously has this skill set and has, continually done this type of work, I mean, that's got to say something, right? Like, it's like, that's who you want for your AD. So,
sure.
What impact he has, who knows? And who knows, maybe one day we'll get to talk to somebody that can tell us.
That would be nice. That would be awesome. Yeah, if you interact with us on the social media and you're related with the show in any way, feel free to reach out. We're kind of awkward in conversation, but we'll get there.
Or if you've ever AD'd before, and you just have, if you could tell us what's up,
you just have some thoughts.
Yeah.
So that being said, like Sam said, we're going to share some more things, what we know about the pilot, and these are not spoilery things. Our intention with this is to give you that if you are still skeptical about a new quantum leap, is to give you some reassurance that the show's in good hands.
Yes.
You dear fan of the original series, the classic series, you fan of the classic series, you're in good hands, because the producers love the old show, and while they are branching off and they are doing something new, they are going to treat our old characters and the old feel of the show with love.
I speaking of the characters, just the inclusion of a character like Magic, I think, speaks highly to their overall knowledge and respect for the classic series, because that's not something you just serve up willy-nilly, Sure. And I think that it'll be really interesting to see the direction that they take that character, because obviously there's only so much that he's going to get to do in the pilot, but I think in future episodes there's a lot of stuff they could explore, which would be really interesting, because let's face it, one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, there's some connections that are made pretty explicit in the
Sure.
pilot. So from what we've been told, so yeah, I guess let's get into it.
Yeah, let's dive in.
All right.
So again, this is information we got from the Observer production notes. Let's say that to be as vague as we possibly can.
Sure. I mean, it's at this point, it's all word of mouth. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, we've not been given a document or anything. But
yes. Okay. Yeah. So we were debating off. So do we Ziggy or Handlink first? Which one do you want to hit first? Let's start. I like your idea. Let's start off with the Handlink first. So we are going to have a Handlink, from what we know. It was described to us by the Observer as a smartphone on steroids, and it's colorful. But Sam and I have been debating offline if if it's going to match the style of the final Gummy Bears Handlink,
right.
or what it's going to look like. And I've been thinking a lot about this because I'm me, and because like the Handlink back in the original series, it was very different. Like now, like everybody has like a smartphone in their hand. Everybody basically has a Ziggy. Yeah, basically has a Ziggy.
Yeah.
In their hand. Like there's a meme that I see shared around all the time, like Quantum Leap forums, like Ziggy, the original smartphone.
Yeah.
And before that, the BlackBerry, whatever, like whatever the PDAs or whatever they were, whatever the Palm Pilots. But now it's like what I am imagining, what I think is going to be happening in the series now is the Handlink is going to be stepping up its game. And we are going to be seeing the Handlink do a lot of new cool stuff that sometimes it did in the series.
Right.
Like putting
Pool Hall Blues.
Yeah, Pool Hall Blues, exactly. Pool Hall Blues, or being the metal detector in Last Dance Before an Execution.
Yeah.
Things like that. So I have a feeling we are going to be seeing a lot more things like that on a more regular basis from the Handlink.
Yeah.
In the new series.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that something that popped into my head, and this is all speculation, this is not at all anything that the Observer has said to us, but something that popped into my head was sort of that MCU aesthetic for Iron Man and a lot of the technology that Tony Stark uses, sort of the pop-up projections, moving things around, that sort of stuff. I that in makes a lot of sense to me, if that's kind of the visual direction that they attempt to go. I think it'll be really cool the first time that the Handlink gets busted out, and I think that, one of the other things the Observer said is it is an intentional, like, I think the design will be an intentional nod to the original. Again, whether that means that we're going to see the translucent Legos or gummy bears, who knows? But I can't wait. I think it's going to be awesome.
I don't know. Yeah. And this may get me excommunicated from the fandom, but the gummy bear Handlink was not my favorite Handlink because it was so abstract. Like even when they gave you a close up, there was no discernible display.
Right.
Which Don Belisario did on purpose because I think he's a quote, like something very much effective. Like he didn't want nerds pausing their VCR tapes to like figure out what the buttons of the Handlink.
Yeah.
Did. I want to pause my DVR or whatever I am watching this on, and I want to try to make out some buttons on the Handlink. That's all I'm saying.
I think that these days, I do think that things have shifted more in that direction, especially as I think because of the ever increasing advances in technology and just even in the imagination for what technology can be, that we're closer than ever to kind of creating some of that stuff that we've only dreamed up before, or in some cases we've created that stuff. And so I think that it's probably a little easier to maybe get some of that across, because everybody does have a smartphone in their hands, that is it. So it's a lot easier to kind of throw up a production design and say like, okay, we want it to seem like this. And, then people can easily, make that connection in their brain. Whereas I think in 1990, it was probably a lot easier to leave it kind of blank. It reminds me a lot of the sonic screwdriver on Doctor Who. The way that the Doctor has in the past sometimes used the sonic screwdriver, even like looking into like the lights on the sonic screwdriver and like reading stuff off. It's like we don't see anything. We don't know what's going on there. So I don't know. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you get to a certain point, technology becomes so advanced, it's indistinguishable from magic. So,
Yeah, I know, right? And I do want to jump back and I want to highlight something about the Handlink. I don't know if you remember this when our friend Kathleen Gibson, when she guested on Thou Shalt Not, that was her first episode of Quantum Leap ever. And I remember her commenting that like the first time that Al pulled out the Handlink, and it wasn't the gummy bear Handlink, it was like the basic black slick Handlink that was season 2 and the start of season 3. That when she watched the episode, she's like, oh, he's got like a modified iPhone thing. That's whatever. And then it clicks like, oh wait, this was produced in the early 90s. There was no such thing as an iPhone.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things too that we'll talk more about, in the following weeks to come. But the pilot and the buzz around the pilot and these announcements, certainly serves as an opportunity to introduce the original series, the classic series, to a new audience. And I think that it's a no-brainer at this point that Quantum Leap will likely be on Peacock before summer's end. And so at some point over the next few months, I think people are going to have the opportunity to watch the show on a new platform. And I know it's available for streaming, and I know that it's available in syndication out there, that there are, channels showing it right now. But I think once it hits Peacock, it becomes a different story, because if you've got Comcast, you have access to Peacock. So it's like, it could be a wonderful opportunity to introduce the show to some folks, reintroduce it to others, and obviously give the diehards a chance to stream it instead of throwing in their Blu-rays or their DVDs.
Sure, absolutely. So that's the Handlink. Now attached.
Yeah,
Ziggy.
You can't really have the Handlink without Ziggy, can you? And we can confirm that Ziggy will indeed be in the pilot. We'll call them they, are offline at the beginning of the pilot, but we won't go into any detail. Eventually Ziggy boots up, and I'm super excited to see how they handle Ziggy, not only visually, but obviously something we were talking about before we started recording the original series. There was, this well-established sassiness to Ziggy, that once we finally actually, saw Ziggy and heard Ziggy, there was a defined character and personality there. How much of that will carry over? Is this going to be a case of like, the Knight Rider 2000, where Kit is basically taken out of mothballs and exactly the same?
I was thinking that exact same thing.
or is it going to be a completely different iteration of Ziggy?
But let me just take a moment to say, NBC, it only took you 4 friggin' years,
right,
between the end of Knight Rider to try to reboot Knight Rider.
Yeah.
Took you almost 30 for Quantum Leap. And I'm just saying, everybody has their own taste. I love David Hasselhoff, but Scott Bakula is a hell of a lot better than David Hasselhoff.
Oh,
stepping down off my soapbox. There you go.
Anyway, look, one of these shows was nominated for Emmys in the acting categories. One of these shows was not.
One of these actors from these shows went on to star in things like Star Trek Enterprise, the very underrated Men of a Certain Age, other great critically lauded things. Another one went on to record the single "Jump in My Car."
Amen. Jump in My Car got me through a lot of drunken college nights. All right.
Anyway,
so I'm really looking forward to seeing exactly what they do with Ziggy. I think we can certainly make the connection based off of the character descriptions that were in the casting notice that we were able to confirm last week, that Ian will probably have a lot to do with Ziggy. And I think that, knowing that in that character description, it even says like Ian is more comfortable with computers than they are with human beings. And I think that that'll be a really interesting dynamic to see how they relate to, the people around them compared to how they relate to Ziggy. So I think that adds a whole new layer to the character of Ian, as well as some interesting prospects for the computer Ziggy. And again, however they decide to craft Ziggy and whatever they look like, I'm really looking forward to that.
I am, and we were talking about this off mic even last week before we recorded. Like, I'm interested to see like how much of that sassiness they do with Ziggy, because it feels like the sassy computer was a very 80s 90s thing,
right?
With Kit and Knight Rider and Quantum Leap, and I feel like there are others out there that I can't remember right now that just felt like a general thing, and it feels very dated. And so I'm wondering how they are going to update that idea, or if they are going to update that idea at all.
Right.
I'm interested to see where they go with that.
Based off of what we know about AIs at this particular point in time and the way that AI is used, it seems to be very congenial. So
sure. And I'm also, it's just now popping in my head, like even like taking the personality away of like what you think of Deborah Pratt in The Leap Back, which is the first time that we heard Ziggy speak. Like I remember like Disco Inferno, like part of the reason why they can't get information for Sam's leap is that Ziggy accidentally put an extra 0 at the end of everybody's paychecks and the entire staff took off.
Yeah.
Are they going to do shenanigans like that with Ziggy in the new series?
Right. Well, because there were definitely times in the classic series that even prior to The Leap Back, when Ziggy's kind of attitude and unpredictability would shine through just through Al's descriptions of what they were doing, back at the project. So I think that there are opportunities to play with that don't necessarily involve what we've seen before. That said, I would welcome hearing Deborah Pratt's voice again.
Oh yeah,
I think that would be lovely. So yeah, I Ziggy, and you can't, let's face it, you can't have the Handlink without Ziggy in a way. Not that the two are necessarily connected in this iteration of Quantum Leap or the pilot, but I think Ziggy will obviously be providing information. We do know, we can confirm that there are some lines of dialogue that involve percentages of chances. So that'll be cool. Just hearing some of that stuff again and being able to have those moments, those nods to the classic series is something that I think people can be excited for. And speaking of those nods, it doesn't end there, because our sort of last piece of information that we'll be sharing this week involves our two main characters from the classic series.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about Al first, I guess. So we do know, and I'm curious to know, and if we ever get a chance to talk to Stephen Lillian, who gave us a shout out on Twitter this last week, by the way, very excited. One of the writers of the script. I'm interested to know, how long has this been in process? Yeah. How long have they been writing the script? Has it been months? Has it been before Dean Stockwell passed away? But what we do know is that they are going to establish in the pilot that Al passed away a few months before the events of the pilot.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, I'm on board with. It seems right.
Absolutely.
And it would have just seemed weird to have Al existing off screen, but not a part of anything. So it seems right. I don't think we're spoiling anything. I think it makes sense. That's what they would do with Al's character, all things considered, for considering Dean Stockwell passing away.
Yeah, I don't think there would be any other choice. And I think one of the things that from a dramatic standpoint is that it does lead to all kinds of questions, and how those questions will be answered are honestly, it's enough to hook me right away. When was the last time Al was able to communicate with Sam? Does Sam know that Al is deceased? There's what was Al's engagement with the project? Because one of the things that we can glean from what we know, not only with the casting notice, but just other information that we're party to, is that this is something like getting the project restarted is something that's been going on for a while. So if Al's only passed away a few months before the pilot, was he aware that they were restarting the project, and how involved was he with that? So I think that there's a lot to mine there, and I don't want to sound cold or dispassionate about the passing of this, wonderful, beautiful human being that was Dean Stockwell, who, even now I have a hard time articulating just how I feel about his passing, because of how important he was to my childhood, as strange as that might sound. But I do think that if I'm telling this story, this story about this character, that there are a lot of really great questions to ask and answer, in the upcoming series.
Absolutely. But now
Right. Well, yeah, because
What do we have to say? What do we have to say about Sam?
yeah. So so Sam will take Sam. So obviously, I don't think that this is going to be much of a surprise, especially with what we were talking about last week with the creator's intent to have Scott Bakula involved with the show. That Sam Beckett is naturally mentioned, explicitly numerous times from what we've been told in the pilot and referenced. And I mean, again, how could he not be? And when you think about other shows that have kind of, picked up the reins of a classic television program, and the fact that a lot of times the nods were pretty infrequent. Think about Star Trek: The Next Generation for a second. You had Dr. McCoy in Encounter at Farpoint, but after that, there was rarely any mention of the original crew from the original series up until Scotty, came on. I think maybe Kirk's name had been dropped once. I don't even think Kirk's name had been dropped once. You had Spock with unification before Scotty.
Sure.
I muffed that, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and because this is something I read a few months ago, and you probably know this, but in case listeners don't, like that was a very intentional thing that did, because like there was so much pressure on Star Trek: The Next Generation for there to be their own thing.
Yeah,
like the producers made that choice to like distance themselves from the original series so that they could prove they could be their own thing. And then once they became a hit, that's when they started mining that well of,
but again,
the original cast,
due to the like Star Trek reset button, the appearances of like McCoy and Sarek and Spock and Scotty, it was like one and done. It wasn't something that was used. And I think that the way that, with the information that we have, it's clear that there is the intent that this is a sequel. This is, we're calling it a reboot, and that's fine, but this is absolutely a sequel. And, both Sam and Al are, explicitly referenced within the pilot in order to kind of create that connective tissue. And I don't think that this is just going to be a one-off for the pilot. I think the intention is that both of their spirits, if you will be deeply ingrained in the series going forward. That yes, it's going to stand on its own 2 feet with this cast of characters that they're assembling and the stories that they're going to tell. But I think that the endeavor is also to continue the story of Sam Beckett, and Al Calavici, in spite of the character and the actor, having passed. So sure. Again, that's enough for me to just be immediately to be excited. And so when I see some of the naysayers online, I kind of just want to like grab by the shoulder, shake them and be like, why? Like, what is it? Like, it's not going to be the same show. It never could have been the same show. We're too far removed from that. Like the nostalgia is not going to work, but this show is in great hands. Like these people love it. And these people are including everything that we loved about the original just 30 years later.
Absolutely. And like, and what I'm excited about is just like with everything you just mentioned with Sam and Al, like there's a lot of different avenues that they can go down. Sam is still out there. How often are they going to bring Sam back? In what capacity are they going to bring him back? There was one kind of clickbaity article. It was like the things that we know about, or no, it was a thing like not that article, but like there was a article from like Reddit users, like what they want to see out of the new series. And one thing was saying that Sam might come back and be the hologram. Contact at Project Quantum Leap. I don't want that. No. I don't want to see that happen.
I don't think I mean, I definitely don't want that. I don't think Scott Bakula wants that.
I don't think he'll run. Here's what I went down some deep fan wink on this one. What if in the 30 years since we've last seen Sam, he's gone rogue, he's gone evil, and he's a little bit more evil leaper? Then that would be a twist that I think most people would not like. I'm not sure I would like it. It just popped up in my head.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mirror universe sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like a nice little what if. Yeah. But I don't.
You will know by the goatee.
Right. Yes. Exactly. No, I think. I think we're going to see Sam in a very different kind of capacity. But there are so many questions.
Yeah.
What did happen after Mirror Image for him? Did he continue leaping as himself? Did he, start leaping into other people again? Was he able to change the nature of leaping based off of what he learned in Mirror Image? Did he, like you said, did he do some of both?
Yeah.
This week I'm myself. This week I'm, person
Whatever.
X. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I think that there is, again, there's just so much rich stuff to mine from the questions that we've been left with for the past 30 years.
Yeah.
And I think that based off what we know, that this creative team is going to run with that.
Yeah.
This is not a case of like, forget about all that other crap. Let's just do our own thing. This is hey, we're taking all this stuff with us,
Yeah. I mean, there's that. There's Sammy Joe that they can bring back in some way, which that hasn't been tipped that it might be. I just realized this week that someone pointed out that Melora Hardin, who is now more well known because she was Janet or Janice on The Office. Jan
Levinson Gould. Yeah.
Jan Levinson. Yes.
It's Jan Levinson
on The Office. She is just about the right age to be Sammy Joe. If they were to bring Sammy Joe,
I would love that.
That would be,
I think she would be great.
That would be very interesting. So we would have that. There's Al's daughters.
That were floated.
That were floated.
There's Beth.
There's
Beth. Donna.
There's Beth. There's Donna. There's Teresa Bruckner from Another Mother that's been floated. Now
there's Tom.
Here's Tom. It would be weird with Teresa. It would be interesting to see with Teresa because spoiler for one of the novels. So if you don't want to spoil it for one of the novels, skip ahead like a minute. But Teresa Bruckner, the little girl from Another Mother, she ends up passing away from cancer.
Yeah.
In one of the novels.
Angels Unaware.
But she comes back as an angel to Al at the project and says goodbye. And I'm keeping it clean. More mindful, whatever. I just want to throw out some cuss words. I remember just bawling as a teenager reading that last chapter of the book. Anyway, it would be interesting to see if they treated that as canon or if they would find a way to weave her back into the show. Probably not. Yeah.
I think that the truth is much like with Star Trek or with any of the other genre shows out there that have spawned a line of spin-off novels, that for Quantum Leap fans prior to this reboot coming, those novels were an excellent source of canon. For those that read them, I think that I considered them canon. You consider them canon, but I think that with the TV show, they're out of print. They're not easily accessible. They're not, who knows what the contracts were like, if they could even do ebook versions of them, if they'd have to renegotiate stuff with the authors, which they probably would. So it's like, I just have a feeling that all that stuff is just going to be swept under the rug, and that a character like Teresa could absolutely appear.
Sure.
It'll be very, very interesting to see how the leaps are handled for Ben, and if there's any differences for Ben's leaps compared to Sam's leaps. Will Ben stay confined to his own lifetime? Will he, as I kind of suggested, perhaps be opened up to Sam's lifetime because of the nature of the project, and the project being basically, kind of like an extension of Sam. I think that the relationships between a lot of these characters, which we didn't go too deep into last time out, will obviously have a big impact. Is there any connection between Ben and Sam? Is there what's the connection between Ben and Addison? Because as was established in the original series, and I think will be used in this series, it's not just willy-nilly who the hologram is, that Al was tuned to Sam's brainwaves and vice versa. And so, with Ben and Addison, being in tune with one another, what's the story there? And so I just think that there's so many unanswered questions and so much wonderful stuff to speculate about between now, and the pilot dropping, that podcasters like us and, Chris and Allison and Matt and whoever else jumps aboard, this ship are going to have plenty to talk about between now and October.
Absolutely. I was just thinking when you were talking about like the novels, what they could like do or whatever, like reaching back out. Chris, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. I'm not even going to attempt to. Foreknowledge
Mm-hmm.
If not one of my favorite novels, it was one of my favorite premises.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember the premise of that one, but basically it was Sam leaps into someone's life, makes a change that is ultimately for the better, but when they leap back, they don't see it that way.
Mm.
And over the course of several years, they piece together enough of their time in the waiting room. They're able to figure out they're able to figure out who Sam Beckett is, and they plot revenge to kill Sam Beckett in real time before he's able to leap.
Yeah.
Originally. That was called Foreknowledge. Check it out.
Yeah.
If you're inclined. If you're
Yeah.
not in the novel. Yeah.
But
anyway, I'm just it's side tangent.
I think that most of the novels are pretty well done and worth your time if you're a fan of the show. And it's something that we still intend on getting into. You know, our plan was to start doing that. Literally, we were having conversations about starting the novels, and then the bomb dropped that, we're getting a new
reboot. Yeah.
It's like, the novels can wait. But one of the things that can't wait, one of the things that we want to tell you about, a project that we had in mind, again, kind of even before the news about the reboot came, but now that the reboot is coming, I think it's kind of bumped up the plans to do this. We want to revisit the series. As insane as that might sound, we reviewed every single episode of the series. As Dennis and I have mentioned numerous times in the show before, we devoted more time to our reviews of the series than the series actually runs. If you were to run every single episode back to back to back, those episodes are very near and dear to us for many, many reasons. We were learning about this medium. We were learning about each other and our chemistry. We were learning about the series in a lot of ways. There's so much that we learned about the series over the course of this,
and introducing new people to it. It kind of fell away after the pandemic and things, whatever, but early on, for the first 3 seasons, we would often bring new people in who had not watched the series at all, and like watching to guest host with us, it was their introduction. Christopher Stewart. One of your friends. He was one of our guestiest guests on the show. And
That's right.
And I always loved his input on everything. But
we did. We did get some really wonderful perspectives that weren't our own. And again, we love those episodes and we consider them very valuable. And yes, I'm sure that there are moments that we would cringe at now. There's also moments that we're very, very, very proud of. That said, those episodes are long, and we know they're long. And for the listeners that have been with us since the beginning and listened to every single minute of us, thank you, thank you, thank you. But one of the things that we would love to do for new listeners, for old listeners, for ourselves, to see how our opinions have changed, is to revisit the episodes in a short format that uses 5 basic points to review the episodes, to discuss the episodes, try to do it in 30 minutes or less, which will be a challenge for us. And we're just going to call this Revisited. So we'll start next week with Genesis Revisited, and we will be talking about the acting, writing, directing, production values, and mythology. We're going to weight each of those specific categories. We haven't decided yet exactly how we're going to weight them out. Mythology obviously will count for less than the other 4. Production values will probably count for less than the other 3, but acting, writing, and directing are that's going to be our focus. That's kind of always been our focus in a lot of ways. And I think it would just be a wonderful opportunity for us to re-engage with the classic series as we get ready for the reboot, and hopefully give listeners, whether you're a longtime listener or a new listener, an opportunity to hear our opinions on the show, and for longtime listeners, how our opinions might have evolved, and if Sam is willing to give Portrait for Troyan another chance, for instance,
or the Americanization of much ago.
No, not happening. No, I think it's been so interesting, some of the feedback that we've gotten over the past few years, and some of the reviews that we've gotten, both good and bad, and what we might learn from that. And some of the stuff, look, face it, I disagree with some of that stuff. It's like, it's not my job to just love on the show for our entire time that we're here. It's not my job anyway, because we don't make any money off of it. So but
sure,
I consider, kind of my responsibility, as silly as that might sound, to give an honest opinion of what I think. And I love Quantum Leap. I wouldn't be sitting here doing this if I didn't. But it doesn't mean I'm going to love every single moment of Quantum Leap.
No, there's I think you may be referencing I stopped paying attention to our reviews for a while, and then I went back and read one recently, and one gave us like a 1-star review. It basically said what you just said, like, this is another one of those podcasts where they say they love it, but then they start dumping on it.
Yeah.
And if you like, I love Quantum Leap like an adult, which means I can love it, and I can also realize when it was not great.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, Scott Bakula has come back and said that there were a lot of scripts to some episodes that were not great.
Yeah.
You can say that about something you love.
Yes.
And that's what we did with the original. That's what we'll do when we go back and we revisit the episodes.
Absolutely. Something else that I want to talk about that ties into a few things that we've discussed tonight, this afternoon, this morning, whenever you're listening, has to do with the word clickbait. I had a wonderful conversation with one of our listeners. Well, it wasn't necessarily a conversation. We exchanged a couple of messages, and the message that they had initially sent was highly critical of our last episode and called it clickbait. And I thought a long time, and I wanted to respond in a spirit of kindness and engagement, and while also saying, hey, this is why we don't think that's the case. And the reason why I'm talking about this now is because I don't want to be one of those podcasts that takes any sort of adversarial role whatsoever with our listenership. And I want to be able to give full transparency to, what's going on here and what we think of every level of not only the show, but our engagement with other fans, because that's the thing. We're fans, we're just two fans with microphones. We happen to have an in at this particular point in time, but yeah, we're just a couple of fans. And the reason why I can sit here and say, in all honesty, that there was nothing clickbaity about our last episode is because chiefly we don't make any money off of this. We've never made a dime off of this. And we do this because we love it. We want people to listen. Of course we do. Otherwise, what's the point of having a podcast, right? Furthermore, kind of one of the accusations that was made is that we didn't say anything that wasn't already out there, which is untrue. We revealed a lot of information last week that was not public knowledge, to the point that Matt Dale on his wonderful website, quantumleapinfo.net, updated 3 separate things on the site with confirmation crediting it to us. One of the reasons why we talk around some of the things that we're discussing is because we have a fidelity to the observer, as well as the creative team, as well as our fellow fans. And I don't want the observer to get in hot water. I don't want the creative team to have their hard work just spoiled at large by 2 idiots with a microphone. And I don't want the fans to walk into October knowing everything. I mean, I just don't. Not that we know everything, but so I think that when we kind of throw stuff out there and say, hey, we're going to be talking about something special, or we're going to be doing it, we really are. And it might not have the magnitude of saying Scott Bakula is going to be in the pilot, or whatever people are looking for, but it's certainly not going to be clickbait. And we will always endeavor to be as forthright and honest with you as we possibly can be, and to also bring you, the best possible coverage that we can give you. And I think at this point, that's exactly what we've done. And I hope that we can continue to do that on this journey to the pilot's air date.
Exactly. And like clickbait earlier, I was there's from movieweb.com. The article just came out yesterday. Everything we know about the Quantum Leap reboot.
Oh man.
My friend. One, that is clickbait. But 2, it did bring something up that if it's been confirmed anywhere, it's saying this is going directly to Peacock. Has that been confirmed anywhere else?
I don't think that's been confirmed anywhere else.
Okay.
I question whether or not I think that's still kind of conjecture.
Okay.
I think it's smart conjecture. I think that's a very good possibility, but we just don't know yet. You know, one of the things too that I'll throw out there real quick is that this is all new to us. You know, we've never been privy to information like this before. Like, we've never worked on something that people, you know, wanted to know about. And not that we're working on, you know, this pilot in any way, but we've never had information that anybody else would give two shits about, quite frankly. And so, you know, and so it's just, we're just walking this fine line. And again, we're not looking to make money. We're not looking to, you know, drive clicks or sell ads or any of the other stuff that all of these websites that are absolutely being clickbaity right now with all of this information, which is A, nothing new, and B, a lot of times it's not even information. A lot of the times it's literally them just asking questions and rehashing stuff from the classic series. And it's like, I read this article because I kind of feel like I have to, since I'm doing this podcast, but you literally didn't say anything about the series at all. Yeah. So it's just one of those things
which they are websites that are out to generate money.
Yes.
To not you know, to not badmouth them in an excessive way. They are literally doing their jobs.
Right.
Well, but it is clickbaity. But it's a lot of things like that, or any article I see, like 15 things you don't know about Back to the Future.
Oh, right.
I feel like Ron Swanson in Parks and Rec saying to the Lowe's guy, "I know more than you."
Right. I know. You know? Oh man. Yeah. Some of the articles. Yeah, it's definitely, yeah. But all that said, I just want to, I'm not going to single this person out, you know, because I wasn't able to, you know, get their permission basically, but I do want to reiterate my thanks for their message, because in addition to, you know, kind of calling us out, they also shared some, you know, personal stuff with us that I was moved by and felt very, you know, connected to them based off of their passion for the show, which we share. And I really genuinely appreciate the fact that they set this out, because one of the things that it prompted both of us to do was to ask questions that we might not have been asking before. Like, it was never our intent to be clickbaity. It was never our intent to try to be like, you know, oh, we're going to get them with this. You know, that was never our intent. But this message absolutely caused both of us to take a moment and be like, are we doing that? And if we are doing that, how do we not do that? And we were able to come to the conclusion, no, we're not doing that. And no, we won't do that. But again, it caused us to be more thoughtful about it. So I genuinely want to thank the person that sent us this message. And I want to thank them for sharing, you know, parts of their story with us. And thank them for giving me the opportunity to respond in kind, and to do it in a way that was, you know, that was private. Which is another reason why I'm not going to, you know, name this person or anything like that. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to have any kind of dialogue, and I thank them for, you know, for voicing their concerns, and doing it in a way that allowed me to respond. So, yeah, like I said, I wanted that out there for everyone to hear, for any of our listeners to hear, because I do think it's important. Also, I want to say hi to Larry Ganny, because Larry just commented on one of our latest tweets, and Larry is a longtime listener, friend of the show, has been on the show,
I'm sure,
and is a great guy. So we're happy to have him on board.
Yeah. And one final thing about clickbait, we are Fates Wide Wheel. Our website is fateswidewheel.com. We are on all the social.
Follow us.
Follow us. It is. I can't tell you where we are on YouTube. On YouTube, you just got to look Fates Wide Wheel or Quantum Leap. And so I think this is a relatively new rule in the last couple of years. You have to have 1,000 followers on YouTube before you can have a special URL.
Damn.
We do have a special URL that we can link.
Yeah.
With our other stuff, so you can like get to us very directly through our other stuff, but I can't tell you to go to youtube.com/fateswidewheel.
Because let me tell you something, listeners, this is how professional we are. After 5 years of podcasting, we just now used our YouTube for the first time.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we have, if you're watching us on YouTube, you know, we have face for podcasts, and that's why. Yeah. But on that note, I think we've gilded the lily. I think it's time to start wrapping up and heading out. We are 10 minutes past our time we said we would wrap up by.
It's all right. We'll get it under an hour. It's all right. You know,
we'll get there one day with editing. But yeah, so that's what we got. Like I said, starting I guess next week we're gonna be starting doing the capsule reviews. the revisited reviews of speaking of, or starting off with Genesis.
Yes. Now I will say that there is one small, hitch to that, and that is if anything new breaks, if there's any casting announcements, if there's anything other, other information, we might preempt that. We might save that for later.
Because let me tell you something, listeners. We are fans of the show. We want to get you information. If we get if information breaks and we want to geek out about it, or the Observer is able to slide us more information or whatever. But I can almost guarantee you that above anything else, me and Sam Fain are two very tired dads of two kids apiece. And while I love the show, there's no way in hell we're getting out more than 2 episodes in a week.
No,
so
it's just not going to happen.
So if news breaks, we'll be preempting one thing for the other.
Before we get out of here, do you remember the days when we would record 2 episodes in a row? We would sit down for 6 hours with a 6-pack of beer, and just
one in the room, across the room from each other.
That's right.
In the same room, with your heater kicking on occasionally, as one of our bad reviews pointed out. But hey,
which it is right now. It's 12 degrees in Chicago, guys.
Yeah,
sorry,
it's freezing cold in Chicago. There was one we pumped out 3 episodes in one day.
That's right.
And halfway through the third one, it's we are not giving this our best.
Oh no. I know.
But anyway,
we were learning.
But
we still are.
We are, and now we have 2 kids apiece. And we have very patient wives who are taking care of other things while we sit down here and record. We're recording this on a Saturday night, well past the kids' bedtime. So I don't know about yours. My kids are in bed.
Oh yeah. Very, very much asleep.
Yeah. But anyway, on that note, if you're a new listener, you'll get to know more about our families as we go on. Otherwise, I think it's time for us to wrap this up.
Yeah,
we're out of here.
We should leap out of here.
And barring any new breaking news, we will be back with you next week for our revisited review of Genesis.
Indeed, we will. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Stay safe out there. Let's leap.
Let's leap out of here. Take care, y'all.